As of January 18th, 2025, the Phoenix Suns found themselves with a 20-20 record in a highly competitive Western Conference. And that record is good enough to get them the 10th seed in the West. And I know what you're thinking. The Suns are the 10th seed in the West? The same team with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal? Yes. So far this season, the Suns have been nothing short of mediocre. They've had a bunch of problems, a bunch of coaching struggles, a bunch of on-court struggles, which has led them to where they found themselves at today. A team that is fighting for a spot in the play-in. And even if they make the playoffs, there's not really a whole lot of people that believe they're going to go very far. And this is insane considering coming to the season, some analysts and some fans thought the Suns were going to be the team to beat in the West. Some people thought they were going to be the team to beat in the entire NBA. But so far this season, we see that is far. However, as the season has gone on, a multitude of things has led to the lack of cohesion through this team. I mean, let's start off with injuries to key players. These injuries to these key players has led to struggles with chemistry and rhythm on the court. Because yes, if a player goes out and they're a very key piece of rotation, of course them going out and coming back in and going out and coming back in is going to lead to some struggles, and you're never going to be able to fully establish that rhythm and cohesion you need to be successful in the NBA. The second thing is lineup changes. As a result of these injuries, you have a bunch of different players playing with each other. Certain play styles don't mesh. You don't get to get a feel for what this player is good at, what this player is bad at. That also messes up the whole dynamic of how they play. And that can lead to a bunch of struggles throughout the season, as we're seeing. Because you're essentially learning how to play with somebody new every game and having to adjust to different styles. And you're never going to be successful in the NBA if you're doing something like that. On top of that, you've had a lot of players who aren't really used to certain positions you might put them in, certain roles you might try to place them in, playing in those exact roles and positions. They aren't prepared for that. So of course, naturally, they're going to struggle. Because when you think about it, who in their right mind is going to be able to successfully play and execute something that they've never done before and never even been fully prepared to do? Nobody. And that's exactly what's happening with the Suns. On top of that, they had issues they were struggling with in the past that just keep on resurfacing. Things like depth issues, which makes sense. You're paying your top three who knows how much, over half of your payload. So you don't really have a whole lot of money to give to other players to surround them. So what does that mean? You can't really build around them. And with this new CBA that comes out, it makes it even harder for you to put quality players next to them. Then the Suns already had something like defensive struggles that they were struggling with. And that has continued to get worse this season. Teams are starting to recognize that weakness, and they're just been attacking it all day. And on the opposite end, they can't keep up. That's what got them in trouble last year. That's what's getting them in trouble this year. And that's why they're in the position that they found themselves in. And I'm sure everybody is underwhelmed. I mean, me as a fan, I'm underwhelmed because the Suns are entertaining. I like watching Kevin Durant. I like watching Devin Booker. And I like when teams succeed. The Suns aren't doing that at all. And I'm sure this isn't what any fans had envisioned, especially the fan base, nor did the owner when he made this big blockbuster trade for Kevin Durant and gets Bradley Beal right after it. So I'm sure he's disappointed as well. So with these struggles, with these expectations being not fulfilled, this has led to a lot of questions. How did the Suns even get here? Will they be able to bounce back? Will they be able to fulfill these high expectations that were set for them? And short answer, I don't believe so. Why? Well, it's pretty simple. The Suns have been struggling all season for the same couple of reasons. The first one being injuries. Since the year has started, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal have only played in 8 games together. Out of the 40 possible games they could have played together, they've only played in 8. There's no way you're going to be able to establish any type of dynamic, any type of rhythm, or any type of cohesion if you haven't even played 10 whole games together in this lengthy NBA season. Because everyone's getting injured. Kevin Durant has been injured, Devin Booker has been struggling with injuries, and biggest of all, Bradley Beal has been struggling with injuries. So, therefore, they haven't been able to put everything together, and that explains why the on-court product is struggling. And it's even worse for a team like the Suns when their team is built around those 3 players. That brings me to my second point, their lack of depth. The Suns have built their roster around these 3 players. These 3 players take over half of their cap, which doesn't leave a whole lot of room to build around them. So they fill in these other spots with players who honestly aren't really that good, or not good enough to where they would be able to lift the team when injuries do come up, or even when all those 3 players are playing, to sustain them when they go out. And thirdly, let's talk about their defense, or more so, the lack thereof. the Suns rank 25th in the league in points allowed per 100 possessions. The Suns allow a total of 115 points per 100 possessions. That is a league worst. But that's what happens when you trade away players like Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson and don't replace them. Those were two players who were big reasons why they were so successful in the past years, because they served as defensive anchors for that team. And they have failed to replace them. And that leaves the Suns where they are. And it doesn't balance out at all. The Suns offensively are solid, but not good enough to where they can sustain their level of play on defense. They rank 14th in the league in scoring. So that's more middle of the pack. And you can't be one of the worst defensive in the league and only be a middle of the pack team on offense. That's not going to get you anywhere. There's no type of balance. So that explains why they are a 500 team in the NBA. Now, of course, when you have a talent like Kevin Durant, who's able to give you a league-leading 27.1 points per game, alongside 6.4 rebounds and 4 assists, you're going to be okay. Kevin Durant has been one of the greatest players in the league for almost as long as he's been in the NBA. And then you have somebody like Devin Booker who can follow that up with 26.5 points and around 5 assists per game. You're going to be good. But the drop-off in production is significant after these two. Bradley Beal is only giving you 17 points per game. This is a player who you had high expectations for coming to the season. He's the third option on the team. And when somebody like Kevin Durant or Devin Booker isn't playing, he's potentially going to be your first option. So it's kind of sad that he's only giving you 17 points a game. And below him, it's even worse. But that's what happens when you build a top-heavy team. Now, I thought teams would learn from the failed experiment in Brooklyn a couple years ago with Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, but it seems like they haven't. And the Suns are doing the exact same thing, and they're seeing what happens. No team, recent history, has been able to build a big three, build a roster around 3 main players, and be successful. So why the Suns even tried it, I don't know. I guess they thought they were different, but obviously that's not the case. And then when you add that with the new CBA rules that just took effect last year, it gets even worse, and it makes even less sense as to why they would make a move this big. I understand you thought you were going to be able to be different. You thought Bradley Beal was going to be able to give you a little bit more. And of course, who could have expected for Bradley Beal to have that big of a drop off in his production? Like I mentioned previously, depth has been a glaring issue for the Suns. Check this out. The Phoenix Suns bench is averaging 28.3 points per game. That is second worst in the league. And with production this low, you're basically putting pressure on your top stars to have a big game every single night. There's not a single player in the NBA that I can think of who is capable of doing that. Especially not when you're relying on somebody like Kevin Durant or Devin Booker. That's just not going to happen over the course of an 82-game season. And that explains why they've been so bad. Now, of course, you have players like Grayson Allen, Eric Gordon, and Yusuf Nurkic who have their moments every once in a while. They might have a big game, might have some big plays down the stretch another game, but it's not consistent enough. And even outside of those players, nobody else is giving them anything, whether they're in the starting lineup or coming off the bench. And that just makes the case even worse for the Suns. You have lineup changes, and you have bad depth to work with, and you have injuries on top of that. I can't even put all the blame on the coach, because what does the coach have to work with? And with all these glaring issues, it's hard for me to even think that the Suns will be able to compete with teams in the Western Conference. Real contenders like the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Lakers this season, the Nuggets. How can I expect a team with these many issues to be able to compete with these teams who are competing for a Western Conference championship and the NBA championship? It's just not realistic. Now, sure, on paper, the Suns look like legit contenders. They look like they could be one of the best teams in the entire NBA. But when put into practice and we see all of these flaws that have been exposed time and time again as the year has gone on, that's just not what's going to happen, especially not this season. So that raises the question, can the Suns turn this around? The short answer is yes, but it's not that easy. It's a multitude of things that have to go right for the Suns to even think about turning this around. The first thing they have to fix is their injuries. The injuries have been relentless for the Suns this season. As I mentioned beforehand, their top 3 players have played a total of 8 games scheduled this season. And you're not going to be able to establish anything with that. So these guys have to get healthy and have to establish some sort of consistency to where they can play together. Now, I'm not saying they have to do that. They have to play every game for the rest of the season together. That's impossible. I don't think anybody will be able to do that in the NBA. But they have to get more than 8 games in. That way, if they do make it to the play-in and do make it to the playoffs, they can at least put up some sort of fight. They might even make a run similar to how the Lakers did a couple of years ago. And this is even more imperative for them because these are the 3 players that this team has been built around. They're built around these 3 players playing and being one of the best offensive trios in the entire NBA. And it's not too far of a stretch they can still do that. Because even with their struggles, with how great Kevin Durant has been this season, how good Devin Booker has been, and with the potential for Bradley Beal to play even better alongside these 2, it's not a far-fetched thing to say that they could still finish at a top 10 offense in the league. And the other 2 things that they have to fix, of course, is defensive struggles and depth. Now, these 2 things kind of tie into each other. With their current depth, there's no way that they're going to be able to fix their defensive woes. But if they make some moves, maybe find some gems in free agency, maybe make some trades, whatever trades they can make, that would be the only way I can see them fixing these issues. Outside of that, I don't see how this can be resolved. So that brings the question, are the Suns doomed? Can the Suns recover and possibly turn this season around even though it's already halfway over? Short answer, no. In my opinion, I don't believe they can. There's too many issues, too many things you have to overcome, and overall, you don't build your team around 3 players. I think we should have learned this from the Brooklyn Nets experience. Them building around those 3 players was probably the last time we were going to see a team get that close to success. Before then, it was Golden State, and they just had 2 outliers as 2 of their 3 best players. Outside of that, it hasn't really worked outside of Miami. So I don't think the Suns are going to be able to do it, especially considering how big of a drop-off that Bradley Beal has had in his production. It would be very surprising to me if, in this second half of the season, the Suns were able to turn it around. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you guys believe the Suns can turn it around and potentially be legit competitors and threats to teams in the West come in the postseason? Or are you like me and you giving up? Let me know in the comments, and that's all I have for now. Until next time, peace. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video.